morning, Madam Chair, members. My name is Lisa Bivens, and today I represent my child. I'm a mother, and I'm also here in my capacity as a subject matter expert, as a lawyer who has practiced sex discrimination cases on both sides, and also I practice currently in health and education law, which this bill touches, and ask me how at the end, because I want to take my time to tell you about my story. My daughter has a health condition that meant when she was born, doctors were confused about her gender assignment at birth. If you're confused about how that could happen, so was I. I did not know anything about endocrine issues before my daughter was born. As it turns out, with some endocrine issues, doctors can get confused about gender assignment at birth before you get the medicine in place to help the body adjust. In the hospital, while we were figuring all of this out, the issue of my daughter's birth certificate came up. The medical professionals were still running various tests to determine my daughter's situation from a medical perspective. For the record, nobody was trying to ascertain whether my daughter could produce ova, which is what this bill focuses on specifically. That alone makes me question the thoroughness with which this legislation has been vetted with the medical community.
That's time. Members, any questions? All right. Representative Grantham.
I do have a question. Lisa, thanks for giving your testimony. Difficult testimony, I can imagine. So, if a piece, Madam Chair, if a piece of legislation like this existed and it exempted those types of scenarios, would it be acceptable or no?
No, and let me tell you why.
Through the chair.
Through the chair, yeah, talk to her.
Thank you, Madam Chair, Representative
I'm
Grantham.
just, I don't matter. She matters.
If this bill had been in effect with its definitions that fall woefully short of the human experience, neither the hospital nor the state could have given my daughter a birth certificate. And even though this bill would allow for anomalies to receive accommodations, my daughter does not need an accommodation that is recognized by law. She does not have a disability. She has an endocrine issue.
Madam Chair, if I may. So a medical, an endocrine issue, I don't know what it was, don't need to know beyond what you'd like to provide. But it was, I'm assuming, a medical issue, not a choice, but a medical issue. She obviously didn't choose to have that issue. So is there room to exempt medical issues in this type of legislation? It kind of comes back to my first question. Or is it just all for nothing, in your opinion?
Madam Chair, in my opinion, any law that tries to put humans into categories is going to be problematic not only for my children with my daughter's condition and others that have other kinds of endocrine issues, but it's also going to run afoul of equal protection issues, which have to do with when you're categorizing people and then assigning them rights by category. So I think that your question is a good one. I think it's fair, and I think that it has a couple of answers. With respect to the medical community, I don't know whether or not there is a way to rewrite this bill so that you're not accidentally leaving citizens outside of the law. I would encourage members who have questions about that to consult with health professionals.
Thank you, Madam Chair. That answered it. Thank you.
Madam Chair.
Thank you. Next was Representative Martinez, and then we'll go to Rep. Ortiz.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you for your testimony. I forgot your name. Who decided that your daughter was going to be a daughter? Was that a doctor or was that you? Because it surely was not the daughter.
Ms. Bevins.
Madam Chair, Representative, thank you for this question, and this is private, and I'm going to talk about it because I think it's important, but it's going to be a little difficult, so please bear with me. When my daughter was born, the doctors held her up and said, "Here's your boy." Wrong. Wrong. And then they ran some tests. They had an ultrasound to figure out what was inside her body. And then they ran some tests to figure out what chromosomes were showing up. They didn't talk about the ova stuff, right? Because I was in Flagstaff, where medical providers are not specialists, and by the way, the specialists are in New York, and I had to fly my daughter out there for it. In the meantime, when we're trying to figure this out, what is going on with my daughter? And by the way, this condition also caused her to fail to thrive. So my concern was, is she going to live? Not what gender is she, but this is what was happening at that time. as these tests are coming back, and as I realized that Flagstaff Medical Center doesn't have an endocrinologist on staff, I had to consult with my doctors, with my daughter's doctors, about what information do we have and what advice am I getting. And it became a parents' rights issue. It became a, mom, are you comfortable with the information you have, filling out the birth certificate so we can record the fact that your daughter's arrived. And in consultation with her doctor and her father, we made that choice, and it was a private choice. And I think that's the thrust of what I'm asking today, is that this bill, I can understand the ideas behind it. I don't even have to talk to those. But what I can tell you is that this bill gets into medical decision-making between parents and doctors and diminishes parents' rights in that capacity. And it also diminishes the doctor's ability and the hospital's ability for what they can offer a parent in those circumstances where you don't fall into these categories and all you're trying to do is figure out, how do I get my daughter home safe?
Follow-up, Madam Chair.
Please.
I'm a little confused, and I'm very, very sorry. First of all, I believe that no matter what your child is or who they grow up to be, you love them all the same. So let me state that first. The question was it you who decided, or was it the doctor who decided the sex of your daughter?
Madam Chair, and what I'm telling you is that your question is very straightforward. The practical reality of how that question came up was not as straightforward. It was, here's the information we have, here's the information we're waiting on, you're going to have to wait a month until our endocrinologist comes back, but with the doctors on site and the information we have and the test results that are back today, and mom as the decision maker, as the authority for your child, let's make this decision. And at the end of the day, I called it with my doctor's advice.
Madam Chair.
Rep. Ortiz.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Ms. Bivens, thank you so much for being here and sharing your story. I know it's not easy to open up your personal life, but it's really helpful as we're trying to make these important decisions. I want to just clarify, I feel like this was alluded to earlier, and I want to make sure that it is corrected. We're talking about your situation as a very clear a medical condition. But this bill also impacts trans and non-binary folks. And I want to be very clear, in your view, to be trans or non-binary is not a choice. Would you agree with that?
I would agree with whatever the medical community is saying they understand. I am not a doctor. I am only here in the capacity as my daughter's mother. And I know that she did not have a choice about how she arrived in this world. And I would defer to the experts on trans issues, including the doctors who are well-versed, to decide how to approach that from a health perspective.
Madam Chair?
Yes.
Madam Chair, Ms. Bivens, so on the issue, on the topic of doctors, and how this is going to be enacted in hospitals, do you think that it is realistic to expect hospitals or clinic providers to even be able to comply with this bill as written?
Madam Chair, no. And this gets into my territory as Health Law Compliance Council, and I appear regularly before the Arizona board. This is what I do, is figure out how to help doctors and health professionals bring themselves into compliance with the law. This law requires sweeping reform. You know, it has a requirement that every single thing that gets put out by this state, essentially, gets changed. That is not a control, find, control, replace kind of situation. That is something that will require an overhaul of policies, documentation processes, intake, procedures. That's training. And this bill says there's no fiscal, there's no price tag for implementing this, but that's not true. For every single thing that has to be done differently, you have to tell someone how you want it done, train them to do it, and then make sure that they're doing it well so that we don't run into issues of people falling into this just because they didn't get the memo.
Madam Chair,
Yes.
one final question. Thank you. Madam Chair, Ms. Bivens, so we heard, thank you for that clarification first, and then we heard some testimony about this being about protecting sex discrimination. You are an attorney who's practiced these cases, so I want to respect that you are a subject matter expert in this area. Can you tell the committee whether we already have laws on the books that protect sex discrimination as defined in the proposal?
Madam Chair, Representative, yes, we already have laws that protect what this bill says it's trying to include in that protection, and the reason for that is that our laws already prohibit discrimination on the basis of sex. Full stop. You do not need to say in comparison to or in relation to or simulate. It doesn't matter about who other sex and how other people would be treated. The analysis is always, did you do what you did because of something having to do with my sex? You don't even need to ask, what kind of sex am I? You don't need to know what's in my pants to know that I deserve to be treated the same under the law.
Madam Chair, to that
Yes,
point,
Representative Martinez.
so when a woman is harassed because of her gender, okay, it is based on how the woman feels. You know, I feel that I am being harassed. If a man comes to me and says, you know, you can't go in there because for whatever, and I feel like I am a woman and he is discriminating me against that I'm being a woman. That premise, because that's how I understand harassment. Harassment is based on how the person receiving the harassment feels. So if I'm a 16-year-old girl and I go in to my locker room and I see somebody who is biologically not a girl, I feel harassed. And my harassment should be just as equal as their harassment. So my question to you is, based on that premise, since you are a legal expert, who has, if both folks are being harassed, who has the final say?
Madam Chair,
Ms. Bivens, yes.
Representative, may I ask a clarifying question for your hypo?
Madam Chair, absolutely.
You said we're talking about minors, and you're talking about a locker room, so I'm assuming we're on school.
You know what, we're gonna change that, Madam Chair. Why don't we make the hypo, 18-year-old public bathroom, at a bus stop.
Okay, Madam Chair.
Yes.
Representative, I appreciate the clarification because you just took the hypo out of Title IX's protections, which exists to protect minors at school,
Okay.
and you put it into adult protections in public. And so those are really different by operation of law. The legislature has made.
To the point, ma'am.
Yeah, sorry.
Madam Chair,
Yeah.
to the point, because to the chair, respectfully, I feel like you're giving us a speech.
I'm sorry.
And I'm asking for questions.
Yes.
So if you could just stick to a question format rather than a speech. I know you're passionate,
Thank you.
but you're losing me in your speech.
Madam Chair, I'll try to keep, so in your hypo, if you have a sense of I was just discriminated against as the woman in your hypo, you would be able to approach that from actually three ways. One as a criminal allegation. You would call the police and say this is what just happened to me, and they would determine whether there was probable cause for a crime. You would say maybe I have civil recourse. Maybe this wasn't a crime, but you were negligent in something you did. It harmed me. The law recognizes that as harm. You can take your case to the courtroom and say, I have this case, and let it figure out if under the law you were harassed in a way the law recognizes. Or third, if you don't want to do either of those things, you can go get an order of protection or an injunction against harassment, and if you have the facts that support it, the judge will give you one.
Madam Chair, to that point. So what you're saying is that if I walk in and I see a transgender man and they are engaging in me and they are harassing me, and I go out to a cop, then the woman has the authority to be harassed. Because based on your hypothesis that the transgender has every right to be there, and I feel like I'm being harassed by their presence.
Ms. Bivens.
Madam Chair, Representative, I'm going to try to stay on your topic, on your question.
Please.
What I think you're really talking about here are property rights, because who can control what goes on the door is a matter of private property rights or public property issues. And so what you're talking about is who's allowed to come into the bathroom to begin with, and that's what we're talking about in terms of what the labels on the doors say. And what I was trying to get across with telling you about my daughter is that there are categories of citizens who don't fall into those buckets.
To that point, Madam
To that
Chair,
point.
the issue with your daughter is a medical issue, from what I understand. From what I understand, the issue with your daughter is a doctor told you that your child, even though born a male, born with a male body part? Okay. The doctor wanted to classify your child as male. That's what I heard. And that the doctor said to you, there is an issue with your child, and that your child has chromosome issues, some other issues. Okay, well, then I misunderstood your conversation with your child.
Did you want more further clarification?
Now, I'm gonna stop there.
We'll move on. All
We're
right,
gonna stop
members,
there.
further questions?
Madam Chair.
Repeat.
Yes. Madam Chair, Ms. Bivens, so the terms male and female and man and woman are terms that are defined in law. We do have these categories in law, correct?
There are different definitions in different titles, and I could not tell you off the top of my head whether there is or is not.
Okay. And we know that we do have these spaces. Do we have these biological distinctions in law for specific purposes, like to
Bivens.
protect women's?
Madam Chair, I don't know what definitions you're specifically talking about. The ones I'm thinking of are the ones this law would create.
If we, Madam Chair, Representative Evans, if a biological male is convicted of a crime and is going to go to a state prison, but that person also identifies as female, should they be sent to a female prison consistent with their personal belief about their gender?
Ms. Bivens.
Madam Chair, Representative, thank you for this question. I personally don't know what any sort of placement would be proper. I imagine that would be determined at sentencing, and both sides who have issues about where placement should be or what sentencing should look like can bring those issues to the attention of the judge.
Okay.
Madam Chair,
Rep. Ortiz.
Madam Chair, Ms. Bivens, would you say that under this bill, trans women could be put in dangerous situations, like having to be in a male prison when they identify as female and present as female, and that could put them at risk of sexual assault, physical assault? We know that this happens in our state prisons now. Do you think this bill would make things worse?
Madam Chair, Representative, yes, we do know that this happens. I do think this would make it worse because, like Gael had mentioned before, this kind of law requires outing of individuals that aren't visibly one way or the other. And every single time you look at those documents, you're going to know, and then what you're talking about is then you're going to put them into populations that are going to pose risks for them.
Madam Chair,
Rep. Martinez.
to that point, wouldn't it be likely also that they would also face the same problems in a women's jail?
Madam Chair, Representative, I don't know.
Further question?
Madam Chair,
Yes.
if you're saying that in a male prison, that a transgender woman who is outed would be harmed, possibly, then you're saying that this trans woman in a female prison would not be harmed. Is that what you're saying?
Ms. Bivens.
Or less likely?
Madam Chair, Representative, I do think that this is a valid question, and I would say that the right answer is in the statistics of male on female violence versus women on male violence, and that would be a good guiding light.
Madam Chair, and is that Madam Chair, Ms. Bivens, is that based on hormones that run through the body naturally? That women have less testosterone, therefore are less violent? Although some could wager that I'm a little more violent than some men just because I'm on Lent right now, but and I haven't had a Coke Zero. But theoretically, women are seen as less violent because of their hormones and because of the frame of their body versus a man.
Madam Chair, Representative, I really appreciate this question because I think it gives me an opportunity to clarify where the thread was lost about the issue with my daughter. My daughter did not present as male.
Oh, Madam Chair, to the question.
Oh, I'm so sorry. My daughter has the testosterone hormonal imbalance you're talking about. And so this, I think your question brings to light the issue that traditional thinking about men are this way, women are this way, based on our understandings of what chemicals are in their body, doesn't.
Madam Chair, I'm sorry, Ms. Bivens.
Martinez.
I'd like to stick to her, to my question. I want to find out about your child, but I feel that
But that's all.
I would want to know more than what you're willing to share, and this is a public forum, and I don't want to put you and drill down on your personal life. So, I would prefer you not talk about your daughter, because now I go to questions, well then, who determined the testosterone? And you see, and that's really none of my business. So we're gonna keep your daughter out of it, and keep to the question that I had asked you. That question is that if men have more testosterone, that is why typically they are considered by society more violent than women.
Ms. Bivens.
Madam Chair, Representative, I hear that that's your understanding. I don't know that I share it.
All right,
Madam
Rep.
Ch-
Gillette. And
Madam
then Rep.
Chair.
Ortiz. Rep. Gillette.
Madam Chair, may I ask you a question?
To me?
Yes.
Please.
The chairman
Yes,
is
she
the
is.
only doctor in the room.
PhD in education. I just want
And
to point
nurse
that out. I'm not
practitioner,
writing a prescription, no.
doctor nurse, I have a headache. Oh, sorry, wrong question.
Go ahead.
When a human is born, and if you can confirm this, it's either born XX or XY. Yes or no,
That-
Madam Chair?
Representative Gillette, that's correct. This has been an interesting conversation with my healthcare background, taking all of this in, absolutely.
With that, I have follow-ups for the speaker.
All right, Mr. Gillette, you're next.
Yeah, I know.
And then Rep.
Ma'am,
Ortiz.
would there ever be a need
Yeah.
for someone born with an XX chromosome
She just
to get a prostate exam?
She just said she was fine.
Madam Chair, Representative, that is beyond the scope of my knowledge because I have a daughter.
Okay, Madam Chair, may I rephrase the
Yes,
question?
please.
If you're born with an XY chromosome, you know what, I'll just leave it at that. If you can't answer the question, there are only two sets of chromosomes. An XX will never need a Pap or a prostate exam, an XY will never need a Pap smear.
All right, I
No
think
further
we're
questions.
getting off the
Yeah,
point,
we're
so we're
good.
gonna wrap
Well,
up.
that's the
I've already-
scientific point of this bill.
I think
Yeah,
that might be
and
for
perhaps
discussion or
sex
something.
discrimination. So, yeah, our time is wrapping up, so we have one more, and then we're gonna call this a wrap.
No, Madam Chair, I'm done.
All right, so,
May I
Mr.
take the
Vice
time?
Chair.
May I take her question?
Oh, well, okay, that's fair. All right,
Okay.
Rep. Heap, you're the last one.
Yeah, Madam Chair, Ms. Bivens, if we have a school and we have a female locker room for female students, and there is a biological male who identifies as a woman and wants to use those facilities, do you think that the young women at that school need to be made to shower and change in front of a biological male? Is there something in your mind that's unnatural about a teenage girl not wanting to undress in front of a teenage biological male?
Madam Chair, Representative, in that scenario, the students, the girls who felt uncomfortable with being made to share a space with a trans woman, they would be able to take their concern to their school's Title IX compliance director and pursue a sex discrimination claim if they felt they had one, and then it would be evaluated for whether or not they did. Because there are laws about what our schools have to do to make sure that our students have access to their education. And that's how it would be handled.
Madam Chair, Ms. Bivens, so you're saying that then the burden shifts to the girls who want to use the girls' locker room and the girls' shower to then go through a legal process and file complaints and have lawyers file a Title IX suit?
Madam Vice Chair,
Let's hold a sec.
point of order.
She's the chair. I'm the
Right, Madam Chair.
Yeah.
Madam Chair,
Ortiz.
it was my understanding that Mr. Vice Chair just said to you that there would be one question, and that
Right.
question has been
Fine, I
answered.
withdraw the question.
Okay, all right, that was it, so.
Thank you.
Mr. Vice Chair, please move the bill. Oh, by the way, Senator Kerr did text, she's on third read, so she cannot leave the chamber, so we'll move the bill.
Madam Chair, I move Senate Bill 1628 receive a due pass recommendation.
Secretary, please call the roll.
Representative Contreras,
No.
Representative Gillette,
Aye.
Representative Heap,
Aye.
Representative Hernandez.
Pass.
Representative Marshall. Representative Martinez.
I'd like to explain my vote.
Please.
I am 5'4", that's a fact. I wish I was taller. I am Hispanic, and I am brown, and I love that fact. It's a fact. And I am a woman. That is a fact. I identify as a woman. That's a fact. I think there are folks here who identify, who feel comfortable in makeup. I understand being in makeup because I feel prettier in makeup than when I don't. And I think the world agrees with me, okay? I think that when I wear a dress or when I wear an outfit, that projects to the world who I am. That's fine. I have no problem with that. If anybody wants to feel that they're prettier or with makeup, that they enhance their beauty with jewelry or with outfits, I think that's a great thing. You do you. What I do have a problem with is that people saying that because people are saying that this is not a fact. We have two sexes, not three. They're not subject for opinion. There are facts. There is male and there is female. That's it. That is it. Now, there are anomalies, medical anomalies. I will concede to that and leave that up to the doctor. But for this bill, what this bill is doing is this bill is protecting women. This bill is saying there are women, we have less testosterone, we have smaller frames, we have different needs that are never, ever, ever going to be the same as a male. That has nothing to do with the way that we project ourselves, who we are to the world. That's something different. I think this bill is needed because somewhere along the line, we have confused what a fact is. And with that, I enthusiastically vote aye.
Thank you.
Representative Ortiz.
Madam Chair,
Please.
I want to say to the members of the audience today that what was just said was deeply offensive, and I am sorry. I am sorry that you have to be here as we debate your very existence.
Excuse me, let's not impugn each other's motives. Let's stick to your vote.
It is a fact that you exist and you identify how you identify. You are loved, you belong exactly as you are. And I thank you for being here today.
All right, stop. Point of order. Point of order.
The point of order is, I did not say that they did not belong. I did not say. My point of order is she is assuming.
You're not arguing with her. Rule 18.
She- Rule 18? Rule 18, she's impugning
All right.
what I'm
So
saying.
duly noted. Let's start over. Let's just stick to the rules.
Okay, Madam Chair. The American Psychological Association adopted a policy affirming evidence-based care for transgender, gender diverse, and non-binary children. These are the professionals and in the psychological world and the medical world, and I'm going to note that their opinion matters here. They have also noted that recent legislative attempts to obstruct access to psychological and medical interventions for non-binary and trans folks puts them at risk of depression, anxiety, and other negative mental health outcomes. So that is why I say to the people here today that I am sorry, because I know this legislation hurts. But I want you to know that personally, for me, I'm happy you're here. SB 1628 is what we've been referring to as the LGBTQ plus Erasure Act, because it is inspired with a goal of erasing LGBTQ plus people, particularly transgender and non-binary, from public life.
Yeah, let's finish the speech. Stay on the bill. How do you vote? Yes or no? Or present?
Yes, there are conflictions with federal law that we did not vote, that we did not discuss
Is that
today.
a yes?
I vote aye on this
All
vote.
right. Thank you. You voted aye.
Oh, I'm sorry, Madam Chair. I vote no.
But we'll clarify that.
Representative Hernandez.
Madam Chair, may I?
Please.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I want to agree with one of my colleagues on the other side of the aisle. It is none of your business what is in their pants. And I have to say that It is a fact that trans people exist, that non-binary people exist, and in the medical community, and I hope that my colleagues who are also the medical community with me know and can speak to the fact that whenever we are met with someone who falls into those categories that I just mentioned, we do not put them into boxes. We seek to understand and we create the necessary accommodations to make sure that they are recognized as the human beings that they are. I vote nay.
Thank you.
Representative Grantham? Vice Chair Bliss?
Aye. Members, by your vote of 6 ayes, 3 nays, 0 present, and 0 absent, you have given SB 1628 a due pass recommendation. Having no further business before the body, without objection, the House Committee on Judiciary is adjourned.